What is going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Thank you for joining me for another replay battle. Today I've got a 4 versus 4 team battle on Age Reforged, done on a map that I expect many of you are not going to be familiar with. This is a quote-unquote newish map. This is the most updated version of a map that's been around for a while but is not in general circulation. The festering, stinking morass that you see stretching out before you is the Dead Marshes. And this is it's an interesting battle. There's a lot of push and pull, the lines get very fluid, and the terrain is very, very broken. So there's a lot of tiny skirmishes and choke points that take place in various points on the map. So it's not just one big fight, there's a whole bunch of little fights, and who ends up winning more of those little fights is going to determine who is the victor today. So without any further ado, let's get into the army comps and then into the replay itself. I hope you guys enjoy it. The first army we're going to be looking at today is part of what will collectively be known for the sake of convenience as the Blue Team. This is the Kingdom of Harad, being commanded by Crimson Behelid, who, by the way, sent in the replay, so thank you very much to Crimson for supporting the channel. I appreciate it very much. Thank you, man. But he is bringing a couple units of dismounted Serpent Guard. Everybody loves the dismounted Serpent Guard. They have been transformed into I would say they're like a medium-tier mainline infantry unit for Harad. So if you need something that is able to hold its own against good faction infantry, then these guys are the ones that you can fall back on. It's also bringing a couple units of Southron Warband, who, in my opinion, are the backbone of the Haradrim army. These guys are so effective and so cheap for what they can do. They are one of the few AP Spear units left in the game, and on their own, you know, don't expect them to carry the day just by themselves. But when you mix them with a unit like, say, the Trollmen of Harad, or even the Serpent Guard, for example, they become a very ferocious battle line that is not easy to knock down. I will say that they are vulnerable to arrows, however, as much of Harad's army roster tends to be. So you need to be aware of that when you're deploying them, and make sure that you don't get them killed by arrows, because they can do so much for you if you deploy them properly. Also got a unit here of the Muhad Tribesmen, very efficient javelin unit. I think they're also AP and melee after the fact, since they have maces, and they can do a lot of work for you on a battle line as well. A lot of Harad's army has an AP component to it, so while they lack armor, they do have a lot of oomph behind them, so they make very much a nice glass cannon faction. Over here we have a unit of Demons of the Desert, and I will mention in one of my previous videos I mentioned that, or I made the claim that the Elder Council Javelin unit for the Woodland Realm, and I think Lothlorien has access to it in this patch as well, have the highest javelin damage in the game. That is incorrect. It is actually, as pointed out to somebody in the comment section to me, it is these guys, the Demons of the Desert. So with that in mind, you want to use these guys on something really expensive and really powerful. Do not throw away your javelins of the Demons of the Desert on like chaff units, like, I don't know, Snaga archers or something. Don't do it. It's not worth it. You want to pick something big and expensive, and then you can throw these guys into combat afterwards, and they will do very well for themselves. They have 3 HP, so they can stand up to missile fire reasonably well, but that is really their only defense against it. They have next to no armor, as you would expect by looking at them. They're practically naked. And if you allow them to be focused down even by militia tier archers, they can fall apart very, very quickly. So you need to be careful with them. That being said, they are able to hide anywhere. So you can use them for setting up ambushes, or for if they come under fire by enemy archers, you can just stop what they're doing, let them disappear, and then your enemies will potentially forget about them, or at least move on to another target for the time being. Now over here we have 3 units of Haradrim archers. They're all right. they're cheap, and they can put a lot of arrows down the field, which can be deadly for lightly armed opponents. Also got I think we mentioned the Trollmen of Harad already? No, actually we didn't. 2 units of Trollmen of Harad, because of course they brought 2 units. Why would you not? These guys are reasonably cheap for what it costs, for what they can actually accomplish on the battlefields. I think they're about 1050, and yeah, you can get 2 of them for about 2100 gold, and it is definitely worth it. These guys will shred heavy infantry. They will shred other elites. They do tend to lose out, I think, to some god tier units, just because they tend to lack defensive stats, but on the offense, these guys can be very deadly. They can also chant, which can cause fear in your enemies, maybe precipitating a rout if you use it at the right time, in conjunction with fire arrows, for example, or they can anchor your line quite well. I think they also inspire units around them, so your lower tier Haradrim forces will be inspired to fight that much harder in the presence of these elite trollmen. Now in behind, he's got 3 units of Muhad Berserkers, some more cost-effective anti-armor units. These guys are shock troops who are very, very vulnerable to missiles, even more so, I would say, than other shock troops for other factions, because they do not have very much armor at all. I think they have like maybe 1 or 2 armor points, and of course they don't have multiple HP, so very easy to shred these guys with even low-tier archers, so be aware of that. We've got 1 unit of the Serpent Guard, which I think is where the general's hanging out. Yes, indeed. This is not the bodyguard unit. This is a cheaper Serpent Guard unit. Serpent Guard are really good at exploiting gaps in lines, for example, or for hitting your enemy where they're not really expecting it at the time, because they can move very, very quickly and they have a devastating charge bonus. So you can use them as crisis troops or to exploit momentary mistakes in enemy formations and things like that. So they're very useful. Not a lot of them here though. He really hasn't invested too much into his cavalry. I think he's just brought 1, potentially in case he has to face down a cavalry faction, for example. It's useful to have that kind of mounted support. And finally, last but certainly not least, we have the famous Momakil. Everybody loves these guys. Harad players love to use them to smash their enemies, and people on the opposite end of the field love to use javelins to shut these guys down. They can be very, very strong, but as I mentioned just a moment ago, extremely vulnerable to javelins. Javelins will destroy these guys in seconds, and you will lose, I think it's like 2,300 to bring these guys. So you will lose a big investment if you are not situationally aware with how you use your Momakil. But I think that does it for the Haradrim. So let's go ahead. Oh, no, what do we got up here? No, we have 1 unit of Haradrim Archer, so we're all good. So let's move on and take a look at what his ally is bringing. Over here, we have the Free Peoples of Eriador being commanded by Tundra's Fox. And I love it when people take this really underplayed and undervalued faction out for a spin. Eriador is, from talking to the developers, the philosophy behind Eriador is that they are an ambush faction, sort of like an orcish faction, but not orcs. They rely a lot on their numbers and on some reasonably cost-effective units that don't have a ton of survivability. So it's nice to see people take these guys out for a spin. They can be strong in certain situations. I think a lot of their weakness comes from the fact that the ambush kind of mechanic that they're balanced around is really, really situational, and most of the time isn't really going to be applicable or win you any battles. So they're a decent enough faction in their own elements, and they do have some units that are really, really strong, however. We'll see them in just a moment. But in any case, Tundra's Fox bringing a couple units of 4HL heavy swords. He's got 1 unit of the Dunedain bodyguards. Operate very similar to the Serpent Guard or the Serpent Bodyguard. These guys are HP cavalry, so they've got 2 hit points. They're really fast, really strong charge bonus as well, so you use them in a very similar way. Don't get them stuck into combat for too long. Really, you want to keep these guys moving and keep that charge bonus going, because that is their biggest strength. They're very maneuverable. Over here, we got a couple units. We got 1 unit of Battle Ready Dunedain, but he's also got another one hanging out over there somewhere. The Battle Ready Dunedain are, I would say that they're strong. Definitely not as strong as some other faction shock troops, but the extra HP definitely compensates for that somewhat. Of course, they are very vulnerable to missiles, as shock infantry tends to be, but they've got the extra HP, so they're not just going to fall apart in the space of a few missile volleys. But moving on, we've got 1 unit of the 4HL Captains. These guys are really expensive, but they are very much the god tier unit for the Eriador faction. 3 HP shock troops. These guys can do a ton of work, although I think they tend to lose out to other god tier factions just because Eriador is generally a little bit weaker because of the mechanics that I mentioned that they're balanced around earlier. Up here, we've got a couple units of the 4HL Gatekeepers. I love these guys. These guys are the pride and joy of the Eriador army. I think they also inspire units around them, which is really useful for keeping some of the lower tier Eriador, like infantry and things like that, in the fight. They've also got crossbows and halberds, so they're AP at range and in melee. These guys, very much a needed unit for the Eriador faction. I think that without this unit, Eriador probably wouldn't be viable at all. So they are very, very important and the centerpiece of any Eriador army. I think you can only get 2 of them before a prohibitive price increase. So yeah, you can really only expect to have 2 of them in your average battle, unless you're given an obscene amount of funds to do as you will with. Now over here we have the the bandit javelins who throw pencils. I find them hilarious. I don't know how that twig, that sharpened stick that they have there, would pierce armor, but indeed they are AP and reasonably cost effective. I think they're also able to hide anywhere, so you can use them for ambushes. Again, Eriador being an ambush faction, that makes sense. Or for ambushes, I would say, are definitely one of their bigger uses that are maybe outside the purview of regular javelin forces from other factions. But of course, they're javelins, so you can use them the same way you'd use any other jav unit. And finally, over here, we have a unit of mounted and battle-ready Dunedain, who operate on the same principle as Serpentguard and the Dunedain bodyguard unit that we saw before. So not much to say about them there. Moving on now to the High Elves, being commanded by Bredders. He's got, I think, 2 units of Eladra Storm Raiders. These guys are going to be getting a really big buff in the new point. I can't say 0.92. It's 0.95, according to the developers. In the 0.95 patch, these guys are going to be 2 HP, and you'll only be able to bring one of them. However, they're a little bit faster, and I think they're anti-cavalry now, but they will definitely be retaining that bonus if they already have it into the next patch. So you can use them as an anti-cavalry force to support cavalry, or just on your main line, because they've got high damage as well. So think of them kind of like halberds that are good against cavalry, but not as effective against armor. Over here we have a unit of Imladra's Cav, who, again, it's a light shot Cav unit. They work the same way as Serpentguard, so there's not really a ton to be said there about those guys. Over here we have some Sword Quendi. I love the Sword Quendi, and you know what? They're really cost effective. So can I just take a moment to talk about how great the Quendi lineup is for the High Elves? They make excellent tar pits. They're really cheap. You can bring a ton of them, which allows you to economize and invest more into other wings of your army, be that heavy infantry or heavy cavalry, or who knows, maybe bring an extra unit of Elder Ringway archers that everybody loves to hate. These Sword Quendi can hit back hard against light and medium tier infantrymen, although they do tend to lose out against the super heavies, and that's what you would expect from a militia unit. So I find them to just be a really strong, more generally useful unit of militia swords, and they've got really high melee defense as well, so they can stand up to things that you maybe wouldn't expect them to be able to. Now over here we have some Lindon long spears to back them up, which makes a nice little 1-2 punch. So cavalry will not just be able to run right over a formation of Sword Quendi, so it's worth it to mix them in there like this. The Lindon long spears, you know, I'm not too intimately familiar with their stats. I know that they're not AP anymore as they are in vanilla, but they are a cost-effective counter to cavalry, and they're quite fast as well. So you can use them to keep pace with your cavalry and give you a little bit of an extra edge in a cav fight, or to support your infantry formations like this, just to make sure they don't get run over. I've got some more Sword Quendi over there, and oh yes, the Phalas Lords, who have come a long way. They are not the 7 or 8 HP monsters that they used to be, and that's just because in Reforged, across the board, stats are going to be going down for everybody. That's not just the High Elves or like Gundabad or Woodland Realm or whatever. Everyone is getting their stats toned down. So there's not going to be as much stat inflation, but for the time being, these guys have 3 HP and they make a fantastic anchor to your line. They are basically an upgraded version of the Elder Ringway Spearmen, and these guys will hold out for an extremely long time. They've got decent attack values as well, so they can give as good as they get in some cases, especially against lower tier units. Lower tier and mid tier units will not break the Phalas Lords ever. You need God tier to push through these guys. So this is basically a fence that says screw off to your opponent, and usually people will try and surround them with or hit them with AP units and things like that, but this is a good way to potentially get your enemy to commit some elite forces in a certain area. But that's very situational. Don't expect to be able to do that all the time. Up here we have a ballista and a single unit of Elder Ringway archers. I can hear the collective groans already. People hate these guys, and that's because they are AP and just insane, like, eagle eye accuracy. These guys will like draw a bead on you and decapitate you before you can like take 2 steps out of your formation to advance on them. They are really good, and you can usually bring about 2 of them. I think they're going to be losing their AP in the new patch, so hopefully people will stop hating these guys, and they will lose a little bit of their usefulness because of that, but still, they're going to be high-tier Elven archers. They're strong. They're good for what they are. Over here we got some Eladra Stormguard. It's a little bit of a redundant unit, not quite as good as some of the other infantry units on the High Elven lineup, like, say, the Mithlon Nobles. The Mithlon Nobles are more cost-effective, and I think they have better stats than these guys, so we'll actually be bidding our final farewell to the Eladra Stormguard in the 0.95 patch. The appearance of the Stormguard, I think, is getting subsumed into the Mithlon Nobles, and you might be able to bring an extra unit or so of Mithlon Nobles to compensate for the loss of this heavy infantry. So you may be able to get like 3 or 4 units of Mithlon Nobles on your main line, which is really what you want. The Mithlon Nobles, as you can see them right here, a couple units of them in this army, they are useful heavy infantry, and they make a great main battle line for the High Elves. Moving on over here, we've got some Elder Ringway Lancers, who they're exactly what you'd expect them to be. I don't know if they have 2 HP right now. I think they don't, but I know that they will be getting that, or I'm pretty sure they we'll be getting that in the 0.95 patch. I don't know, things that may have moved along in the patch process, and priorities may have changed and things like that. So, well, this isn't necessarily final, but I'm pretty sure these guys are getting 2 HP in the next patch. So they're going to be even harder to kill and even more useful than they are now. So the High Elves, they're losing a few things, and I think the AP on the Elder Archers is going to kind of suck for them. But they'll still be strong, and they are getting some buffs in other areas. Moving on now to the 4th and final blue team army. This is the Orcs of Gundabad, being commanded by Stewed Fungus. Gundabad, very, very strong right now. Along with Woodland Realm, I'd say that they are the evil faction's equivalent of the Woodland Realm. A very rush-oriented, and they can run you over if you're not prepared for it and don't have the proper composition to resist them. But in any case, Stewed Fungus has brought 1 unit of Bolg's Champions. These are wargs without all the downsides of bringing wargs. They've got great morale, they've got armor piercing, and they've got anti-cavalry. So this is a powerhouse unit that is very good for assassinating other heavy cavalry or for dealing with high priority units. They've also got a nice charge bonus as well, so you can use them to flatten lines. So this is just a generally useful unit that can do a ton of work. Moving on over here, we have a unit of the Witch Realm Blackguard. I love the way these guys look. I hope we get more units. In fact, I know we will be getting more Black Numenorian units. Not necessarily in the same kind of aesthetic vein as the Blackguard, but you are going to see more of them in the 0.95 patch. And there's a lot of pictures and stuff like that have been released already. So check out the ModDB page if you guys are a little bit more curious. But anyway, back to the Blackguard and their stats. 3 HP, I think they're also anti-armor. Good stats. Just generally, these guys are really, really strong. They make a very powerful General's Bodyguard unit, which is where the General is going to be. You can see Azog the Ugly right there, hanging out with his little Blackguard bros. Also got a couple units of Guardians of Karn Doom, because of course you do. These guys are, I'd say they're very, very similar to the Trollmen, except that they're not AP. They make a very strong backbone main infantry unit, multiple HP, and really strong numbers as well. Look at that, 202 in each unit. And I don't think they're all that expensive to bring either. I think they have a similar price point to the Trollmen, in fact. Over here we have some Orc Marauders. Efficient, very efficient. That's what this unit is all about. They've got a lot of numbers, AP, a decent attack value, and some decent charge bonuses as well. So get these guys in there, get them stuck in. They will not carry the day all by themselves. You're going to have to support them, otherwise they will melt away. But they can do damage well above and beyond the price point. Over here we got some Orc Fellers. These guys, again, shock troops, expendable shock troops. Get them in, let them die, and maybe they'll reform when they rout or whatever, and you can throw them back in. Over here we have some Black Rurik Warband, mid-tier mainline unit. These guys are good at holding the line, got good numbers, reasonable stats, and yeah, again, don't expect them to do a lot of killing, but they're not bad, especially against units that are kind of in their tier. They're definitely medium tier, though. Over here we got some Rudar Berserkers, 2 units of them, I believe, because of course, you're going to see very, very similar Gundabad builds pretty much across the board. I think they are going to change in a big way in 0.95, although I don't really know the details, so I won't go into that. But these guys inspire units around them, so they can help keep some of the lower tier units like the Orc Fellers or the Orc Marauders in battle for that much longer. AP, multiple HP, and they're just good. They don't have amazing stats, but honestly, they're not expensive. They got multiple HP, and they're good at cracking armor, so what more could you want? Over here, we got some Black Ruruks. Important to get these guys on the charge and to get them stuck into melee. They are very vulnerable to missiles, however, and they've got good numbers, and they're not terribly expensive. Over here, we got some Snow Trolls, which is a nice, happy medium between the regular mountain trolls and cave trolls and the Trolls of Gundabad, who are definitely the higher tier trolls for the Gundabad faction. These guys have really good numbers and good stats. I find, in terms of efficiency, they're the best. You're probably going to see them more often than you'll see any other trolls in a Gundabad lineup. Over here we got some Warg Riders and some hidden Snaga Archers. A ton of Snaga here, actually. I don't even remember how much Snaga there is. There are? Yes. How much Snaga there are. And, yeah, they're Snaga Archers. They're throwaway archer units. They can be useful against factions like Harad, for example, or anything with a low armor value to do some fairly cost-efficient damage. And they soak up arrows really nicely as well. But yeah, Warg Riders, at this point I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar with them. They've got 2 HP, anti-armor, anti-cavalry. They are very vulnerable to missiles, however, because of their lack of a shield and lack of just armor generally. Over here we have the Witch Realm Hammerguard, the God tier unit, one of the God tier units of the Gundabad faction. They've actually got a couple, and you'll probably see, I think the Blackguard is the other one as well, and you'll see these guys really, really often paired with Blackguard, and oh, they're scary. And they look slick as hell in those like jet plate like plate suits of armor. I love it. They look really, really cool. They're AP, multiple HP. I think they've got like 3 HP, and of course they're shock troops. So like, be afraid, be very afraid. And finally, we've got some Witch Realm Inquisitors, who are a decent enough cavalry unit. Pair them with some wargs, and these guys become an unstoppable nightmare. Yeah, they're multiple HP. I think they're 3 HP, just like the Blackguard are, and yeah, they can be really, really strong, really decent melee cavalry. But that does it for the blue team. I hope that wasn't too long for you guys. Went into a lot of detail, but that's what I like to do. But I will, of course, put links in the description for you guys if you want to skip the army comps, as I generally do. So yeah, but in any case, let's take a look at what the red team is bringing to bear today. Over here in this big old blob, and I think they're all bunched up like this because this map may not be terribly well optimized for 8 players, so I think this is like the size of their deployment zone, so they're really starting off at a disadvantage just by being all bunched up like this, although luckily they are across the field from Gundabad, and sort of the High Elves as well, but I don't think they're within range of any of the High Elven skirmishers, and Gundabad doesn't really have a whole lot in terms of range firepower to use against them. But in any case, this is the Woodland Realms being commanded by Forever Alone. That's an amazing name. He's got some Forest Bladesmen, some Light Elven Archers, a couple units of Elder Pathfinders, very, very strong shock cavalry. They got a big buff in the .92 cycle, and I think they're going to retain most of their power moving into .95, but I can't say that I know that for sure. It's also got some Forest Wardens, some spear units here. They're like a militia tier spear unit, but they're an Elven militia tier spear unit, so they'll generally do a lot better than other human or orcish militia units. Also bringing a ballista today, a couple units of the Eriador. You can see them sort of mixed in there. They're a really nice sword and board kind of tar pit unit. I hesitate to call them tar pit. They've got decent enough numbers, and they've got a lot of killing power behind them as well. So they make a solid mainline sword and board infantry for the Woodland Realms. I believe he's also got 2 units of the Bang Archers, Elven Archers, really high accuracy, high missile damage. They can chew out anything that doesn't have a ton of armor. The Bang are really good against, and especially against units like the Eldarin Way Archers and stuff like that across the field, they make an efficient counter to them. I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but he's also got some Light Elven Archers. I think he's got like 3 or so Light Elven Archers, so not a lot of really super high tier units here in the Woodland Realm faction, except for on the Woodland Realm army. But we've also got the Elder Royal Guard mixed in there as well, who are very strong. They're AP in melee, not AP at range, but they've got really strong melee damage and amazing accuracy as well, and 2 HP to boot. So really strong unit right there. Moving on over this way, we have the forces of Khand, being commanded by D.I. Rek Sergei Belikov. He is bringing some Nerniag. I don't really know too much about Khand. The Nerniag Raiders, I think they're like a lower tier archer unit for Khand. He's also brought a unit of Khandish Marauders, who I've never seen these guys accomplish anything noteworthy on the battlefield. They can be okay for soaking up cavalry charges and missile fire and things like that, but for the most part, you're just going to use them as throwaway meat shields. Over here, though, this is the real scary part of the army. You got a lot of Neurod Footmen. I think to the tune of about 3 or 4 units of them. Neurod Footmen are technically light infantry, but they've got good stats and they're AP, so really strong unit there. Nerniag Infantry, these are like a medium kind of battle line infantry that also have bows. So once they run out of ammunition, you can throw them into melee, and they'll do reasonably well for themselves. Over here, we got some Haruzi Heavy Infantry, another AP infantry unit for Khand. These guys are a little bit, they're not bad. And they've got a lot of numbers and stuff that kind of helps make up for that. So the Khandish infantry line is surprisingly deadly against heavier opponents. Over here we got 1 unit of Brotherhood of the Sword and 1 unit of Brotherhood of the Axe to add some elite flavor to the Khandish infantry line. He's also got a lot of cav hanging around here too. Over here we have the General's Bodyguard. This is a unit of Harad Windblades, very, very fast. I think they were actually inspired by a Mongol unit. I don't remember the name of the movie. But they're like these crazy dervishes, and they've got like the 2 swords, 1 in each hand, and they're also multiple HP and very, very fast. So definitely I would say a lower tier god tier unit for Harad in terms of their cavalry. Back here we got a unit of Nerniag Cataphracts, multiple HP, very strong shock cavalry unit, also very heavily armored. Over here we have 1 unit of Eriador Cataphracts and a single unit of Brotherhood of the Lance. So the shock lineup here for the Khandish faction, or for Sergei Belikov rather, it's on point. He's got a lot of strong shock units, and he can use those to just brutalize his enemies' battle line. And against the Gundabad and High Elf matchup, these cavalry can be really, really important, especially if he manages to kind of scoot through in any of these multiple points of ingress in behind the blue team's position. So that could be really deadly for the blue team. And I'm looking forward to seeing just what he does with them. Now moving on over here, not a faction I would have expected to see on the Dead Marshes. We have Rohan being commanded by Declan Gardener. He's got some air raid horse archers, I believe 2 or 3 units of them. A couple units of the mounted shield maidens, who are really strong skirmish cavalry. They're not javelins, they toss Franciscas, but they've got the same range and function as Jav Cav. I think they're also good against units like the Momakil, for example, so Harad is really going to have to watch his step. We've also got some Rohan nobles, some riders of the fold who are horse archers. I don't really know too much about them. I don't play a lot of Rohan. I don't see people play it against me very often, but they're missile cap. You can use them for all the things you would use missile cap for, getting behind units and peppering them from the rear, just generally harassing your enemy before you engage them with your main line. These guys, though, Kalanarhan Knights, I know them, I fear them, very, very strong. This is the god tier cav unit for Rohan. These guys can destroy things. They are anti-armor, anti-cavalry, 3 HP, heavily armored, really well defended. They've also got a shield value as well to protect from arrows from the front. So yeah, watch out for them because they will destroy you. We've got some more riders of the fold over here, some more Rohan nobles, yet more air raid horse archers, some Rohan bodyguards, and then some Rittermark skirmishers. Rohan bodyguards, they're Royal Guard with HP. They do all the things that you expect Royal Guard to be able to do. I've also got some Rittermark skirmishers, more Jav Cav. This is a really powerful cavalry army, which, you know what, I love to see. Usually when people play Rohan, they balance their cav and their infantry, which makes sense for a lot of situations, but it's just nice to see like a really heavy stacked cavalry wing for Rohan. Now let's move on to the 4th and final red team army, that being the forces of Isengard, being commanded by Froggy, or Frogi. I'm not too sure how you'd want me to pronounce that. Over here we have some Dunlending veterans, which is the bodyguard. They are Dunlending veterans with extra HP that cost a little bit more. They are AP, good melee stats, just generally, yeah, it's a discount kind of bodyguard unit if you don't want to bring the, or if you don't want to stick your general in a unit of Nazgai bodyguard, for example. I also got a couple units of Berserkers, very vulnerable to missiles, multiple HP, high melee defense, but next to no armor, so be aware of that. Over here we got the Nazgai bodyguard. I love these guys. This is probably my favorite, most distinct Isengard unit in their entire roster. It's very easy to pick them out where they are on the battlefield because you can see that those white helmets really stand out. We've also got some Nazgai over here, the non-sword and board unit of these guys. They're shock infantry, 3 HP, just like the Nazgai bodyguard. Actually, no, I think the Nazgai bodyguard have 4 HP and are a little bit better than your regular run-of-the-mill Nazgai. You can call Nazgai run-of-the-mill. Up here we got some guards of the Orthanc. Not sure which unit they are. I think this is the 1 HP version. Solid counter to cavalry, good battle line spearmen. They will hold out for a long time against just about anything. I've got a nice line of Urukai pikemen. There's about 3 of them. 3 units of Urukai crossbows, who have body piercing, by the way. So be aware, these guys will eradicate formations very, very quickly. And I think we've also got a couple units of Urukai infantry. No cavalry to speak of, though, which is interesting. If Harad had brought more cavalry, they would have been able to exploit that really heavily, but there's only 1 unit of Serpent Guard, and honestly, there's only so much room to maneuver in the position that Isengard has taken. So yeah, that's it for their army comps. Let's go ahead. Let's get into the replay itself. I hope you guys enjoy it. As the battle begins, it's going to be the blue team, at least on this wing, that takes the initiative. You can see Crimson Behalit moving forward with his Harad Marchers, and I think that's because he notices that Isengard does not have any units like the Urukai Archers, for example, that can counter the range advantage that his Harad Marchers have over units like, say, the Isengard Crossbows, for example. So Crimson Behalit is going to move forward, try and get off some early harass, weaken that formidable Isengard crossbow line, but Isengard's not going to wait for it. They're going to start to move forward with a couple of units of the Urukai Infantry. You can see him already beginning to set his sights, I think, on this central choke point, which is interesting. This is not a bad place for him to want to pick a fight. Certainly not, especially if he can draw his opponent to where these Harad archers are right now. Then he could put his crossbows in the center here and just pour in the fire to the flanks, which would annihilate Harad really, really quickly. So if Isengard picks his fight well here and chooses some favorable ground, then he's going to be just fine. Although it looks like maybe the Harad archers weren't expecting such a quick reaction from Isengard. They're just gonna kind of sit there, and they might find themselves getting caught out with some of the most fearsome mainline infantry in the game. Well, let's take a quick jaunt over into the middle of the battlefield, where it looks like the Woodland realm trying to space themselves out. Hard to blame them. This is a really tough position that they're going to move up and occupy, though. They are flanked over here by the High Elven archer line, and look at this. Noritier archers already getting themselves up here onto this this conveniently placed, what would you call that, like a hill or a cliff or whatever, and they're going to be able to put some fire into the flanks of this Woodland realm force. And these light Elven archers in particular are not going to stand up to that very well. So if he's not careful, he's going to find the majority of his skirmish line shot down really, really quickly. And make no mistake, the light Elven archers in this case make up most of the skirmish line. I think there's like 3 or 4 units of them. They're not the main killing power, but there's really no reason to lose these guys. He brought them for a reason, and that's to deal with some of the lower tier units like these Snaga Stalkers and things like that are moving forward. But you don't want to lose them foolishly. Speaking of Snaga Stalkers, you can see that Gundabad is moving forward with their expendable lineup, trying to soak up some of that Elven fire, that deadly accurate hail of arrows, and maybe disrupt the Elven skirmish line just a little bit, and potentially pin the Elves in place long enough for Gundabad to move in with some of his heavy hitters, and for the High Elves to do their thing as well. And it looks like these Snaga Stalkers are going to get their wish. Actually, no, they might not connect. They're going to catch a few of the stragglers there from the Elven Light Archers as they try to retreat back behind this line of spears set up by the Forest Wardens. If the Snaga Stalkers want to get in there and fight that medium infantry, they're going to have a bad time, even against the spear unit. Let's move back on over here. It looks like, oh man, Isengard's really committing heavily here, and Harad has moved in to commit and to form battle lines. So we've got his Serpent Guard here backed up by Muhad Berserkers, and some Southron Warband backed up by the Trollman of Harad. As I mentioned in the army composition phase, this is a deadly battle line, and Isengard, even though the Uruk-hai infantry are really good, they're not going to be able to get through this. Well, it looks like a hidden unit over here that I missed. Don't worry, you'll have seen it. I made notes of all the comps anyway. So you'll see it in the pictures and things like that. We got some half-work Bane Guard moving forward here. These guys are a medium-tier shock unit. I'm not sure they're going to have like a large range of impact here that they really need to get that charge bonus going. He's also got another unit over here, so it looks like he has 2 units of them, of the Bane Guard, smacking down the front line of the Serpent Guard. They're doing well, though. I mean, you can see the efficiency here. The Bane Guard are not going to win fights on their own, but the Serpent Guard, they've lost like, what, 60 or so out of this unit, maybe a little bit more? And they cost significantly more and are more important than a unit of Bane Guard. So the Bane Guard do have their place for sure. We can see the Berserkers already being sent in. This is like the first line of the more deadly shock troops from Isengard. I'm sure he's going to be holding back those Nazgûl and things like that in support. Meanwhile, Rohan has moved up with his Riders of the Fold and all of his Horse Archers, and is just trying to exploit the Harad weakness, that perennial Achilles heel of Harad, and that being their low armor values. Harad, meanwhile, has set up a nice skirmish line here. These Harad marches could probably be spread out a little bit better, but honestly, there's no fear for that right now. He's going to have lots of time to reform as is needed. Like this, they're going to be able to pepper down those Uruk-hai crossbows like crazy and do a lot of damage to the Berserkers, knock off some of their extra HP, and that is ultimately going to be a big problem, I think, for Isengard. He's going to struggle to get through this formidable battle line. Let's take a move back on over here and let's see what's going on. Looks like Khan has actually moved in to support his ally, the Woodland Realm. You can see the Narad Footmen hacking down these Snaga Stalkers. This is not a fight I would have picked for my Narad Footmen. I would have sent in something a little bit less expensive and a little bit less important. The Snaga Stalkers have no armor to speak of, and one of the big strengths of bringing the Narad Footmen is that they afford you some cheap AP. And it just kind of bogs them down, whittles away at their numbers, and then it's also allowing them to be just peppered to death by some Snaga archers in the back. So, maybe not the best deployment, but they are definitely winning here. Look at this. Eriador also being committed on the part of the Woodland Realm, flanking the Snaga Stalkers. This line is going to fall apart real fast here. This is a sight you do not often see. Sword Quendi fighting alongside Snaga Stalkers. And it looks like a rout from the Snaga Stalkers is going to send the Sword Quendi into a panic, and this front line here from Gundabad and the High Elves is going to evaporate really quickly. So it looks like the Woodland Realm wants to take advantage of this fact, and they're just going to surge forward with their Elder Pathfinders. Hopefully Khand and the rest of their main line follow suit, and they can just use the gap that they've created here to just push forward, eliminate a lot of cheaper and just chaff units from the Gundabad lineup. And then, of course, that really only leaves Gundabad with a couple means of attack. They can come through here, which can be locked down, I think, pretty easily by a lot of the spearmen. So those heavy cavalry units like the Warg Riders and such will struggle to get through that if they move in with, say, a Ballista and some other mainline support and just lock and zone this part of the Gundabad army out, which means they don't want to come through there and get butchered. They're going to have to come through this one other area as well. And all of this is wide open. So aggression here on the part of the Woodland Realm is a good idea, but this is a mistake, I think. 2 units of Elder Pathfinders here. They will kill these guys like crazy, but they're just getting focused down by some Hobbit Archers, which I didn't realize the Tender Fox had, and some Nori Tyrna Warriors, and he's losing them like crazy. Look at this. There's a lot of dead Pathfinders here. I think a lot of that is because they just didn't follow through. They could have charged in there with their Narad Footmen, with their Spearmen, consolidated the gains that they just made, but unfortunately now they've lost a lot of their cavalry, and the High Elves and Gundabad are going to have time to react. And look at this. Elder Runaway Lancers and Imlandra's cavalry charging in. This is not good. They are going to be able to just kind of take back the territory that Khand and the Woodland Realm took from them, and it's just going to devolve into a little bit of trench warfare here. And I don't think that the light Elven Archers are really equipped to stand up in this kind of fight. There's some Snaga Archers over here who can just put so much fire into these guys. Just sheer volume of fire, whittle them down really quickly. And of course, there's the Nori Tyrna and the Hobbits over on that end. So they needed to move quickly in order to secure a positional advantage, but unfortunately they just weren't able to do that. Just weren't willing, I don't think. They wanted to walk into that many archers, but it would have been worth it, I think. Over on this end, you can see that the Isengard offensive has really stalled out, but it has taken a serious toll on the front line of Harad. Muhad Berserkers here, and the dismounted Serpent Guard, rather, really looking worse for wear. Those half-orc Bane Guard definitely paid for themselves by eliminating this very important unit of Harad frontline infantry. Over on this end, you can see that the Trollmen of Harad have also been heavily reduced alongside the Southland Warband. So oh, look at this, big charge here by the Rohan cavalry, the Riders of the Fold, probably out of ammunition. Gonna charge forward and sweep away most of what remains of that Haradrim army. Looks like, I'm not too sure what they're trying to do by getting this unit in behind the rest of the army, but they have opened a huge gap here, and it looks like Isengard and Rohan are going to be the ones to take advantage of it. You can see some Isengard pikemen moving in, and they're going to sweep away everything that remains of this line here. At least things that aren't gunned down by that vicious crossbow fire from the Isengard crossbows. Yeah, the Haradrim main line, all that remains of it, definitely in full retreat at this point. Looks like the Riders of Rohan lost a little bit of micro on them. Declan Gardner is actually going to end up, I think he's going to lose that unit right there. Big charge in the flank by the Mumakil. This is looking pretty familiar if you guys have seen Return of the King. Yeah, and that's going to be all she wrote for the Riders of the Fold. They're now being focused down by Haradrim archers. At least I think so. No, actually, that's friendly fire from the Uruk-hai crossbows. Looks like these guys are just kind of being thrown under the bus a little bit so that the crossbows can deal a little bit of damage to the Mumakil. So things kind of hanging in the balance. Let's take a look at how things are going over here for Isengard. Victory, apparently. They've really whittled down the Haradrim front line. It's fallen apart, I think, much faster than I would have expected it to. And I think a lot of that has to do with, just look at that missile fire pouring in here. Rohan is really well equipped to take advantage of Harad's weakness to missile fire and things like that. So a lot of those Muhads dying. I think there's also some of the Demons of the Desert being lost there as well. Very, very unfortunate. And look, oh man, some Bandit Javies as well just weren't able to do their job. So red team really sticking it to blue at this point. Let's take a look at how things are going over here. The Woodland Realm holding its ground, but honestly, they're just being peppered down. Elves in general do not have high armor value, so even a unit like the Snaga Archers, for example, can be super effective against them given the time to do their work. And look at that, the Woodland Realm Center already starting to collapse. They need to be more aggressive, passivity in this kind of thing is just going to allow your enemies to set up better positions and to just cycle archers in and out and just massacre you. If they wanted to pick a fight, their best, I think, and only chance was to just push, to sweep away the Snaga archers and all of the Snaga, these Black Uruk warband, secure a strong position where they can zone out Gundabad and focus on beating the High Elves. If they managed to like divide this army in half, Khand and the Woodland Realm would have been able to I think, handily defeat the High Elves, and I think any support that the Free Peoples of Eriador could have brought to bear would have been their best chance, because right now they're just getting massacred. So yeah, their only option really is to pull back and to try and get out of range of those deadly Elven archers and those extremely cost-effective Snaga. What we got over here? Looks like some Elven archers setting themselves up to put some fire into the Snaga archers, but yeah, they're just really struggling over here. Even the ballista, I think the ballista's gone. I think most of that crew has been shot down, possibly by Snaga. Yeah, this is looking really ugly for the Woodland Realm. And looks like Khand wants none of this, so they're gonna bug out of that fight. I think the Woodland Realm needs to follow suit as well. They can leave some of these units here to kind of hold the line while the rest of their units retreat, but Woodland Realm does not want to stay here, because now this is exactly what I thought was going to happen is happening here. The forces of Gundabad and the High Elves and Eriador is over there as well. They have a small presence there on the High Elven side. They're just going to swarm against these guys, and they're going to overwhelm them, and he's going to lose most of his army. So I think leaving the Forest Wardens maybe as a rear guard and retreating the Bladesmen and everything else that he's got left is the best thing that the Woodland Realm can do right now, because he is really vulnerable. Look at this. His enemies can come in from either side, surround him, destroy him. So if he doesn't get out of there quickly, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. Or even more so than he is now, I would say. I think I forgot to mention these guys. Yeah, there's a couple units here of Helmingas. Pardon me. And they're just pouring fire into this Haradrim lineup. Got some Rittermark skirmishers here. I think maybe they're out of ammunition. Maybe they were trying to chase down some of the Mumakil. But I don't see any dead Mumakil, so I think the Mumakil probably managed to escape. Oh no, indeed they didn't. Looks like we missed it, but those skirmishers are probably responsible for the death of that entire unit of Mumakil. Really unfortunate. Harad needed to pay a little bit more attention, I think, to how he deployed his units. You want to wait for those skirmishers to use their ammo and things like that first before you commit these guys, because this is exactly what happens. It's a massacre. It's terrible. And I can see the rest of the Haradrim infantry retreating alongside their allies. Looks like they're going to make a stand up here on the hill. Eriador has brought the Forge Hell Gatekeepers to bear, and they're just firing down into the attackers as they approach. This is a really good position, and Eriador has done a good job at, I think, defending the flanks here. He's got some Cardolan footmen on this end. I think he's got a presence over here as well. Oh no, we've got some Serpent Guard putting up a little bit of a rear guard fight here. Oh man. Trollmen here getting charged in the rear, but I think Eriador does at some point bring some forces to bear over here to try and lock down the flanks, because if Isengard and Rohan could surround them and just pummel them from all sides with missiles, it would be a nightmare. There would be nowhere left for these forces to go. Although that being said, without support here, these guys, they could be in a lot of trouble. Though, oh yeah, look at that. I guess Battle Ray Dunaim behind them. But these two units very vulnerable to missiles. So hopefully Isengard and Rohan continue to take advantage of their enemies' weaknesses here and try and whittle down these flanks, allowing them to surround those troops up there on the hill. But let's move on over here. Let's see. The Woodland Realm holding their ground. I mean, I guess it's admirable to not want to just give up in the face of overwhelming odds, but a tactical retreat at this point is what needs to happen. The Woodland Realm is in such a dangerous position. You can already see. Look at this. Looks like some of the High Elven warriors, all backed up by some Sword Quendi, already beginning to scoot around the formation. Lindon Long Spears over here, moving in as well as support. And the Woodland Realm is just going to find themselves surrounded. So now's the time for a tactical retreat and to rejoin their allies, because they're much stronger together than they could ever be alone. Let's jaunt on over to this end. Rohan and Isengard have consolidated, I think, most of their gains, and they're slowly beginning to move their forces across the river in preparation for an assault. Now, this is a bit risky. These pikemen, I wouldn't get them too close. There are still powerful skirmish units up here that can do a lot of damage. The Harad Marchers also aren't terrible against the Isengard pikemen. The Isengard pikes are, I think, a little bit better armored than your average pike unit, but even so, they will take attrition over time from the Harad Marchers, and especially, most especially, from the Forge Shell Gatekeepers. So, I don't know. This is a hard position to approach. I'm not entirely sure what I would do in this position either. He could maybe move in with some of his chaff units if he has them left over, or try and get Rohan to do the same. Maybe start skirmishing with some of these Helmingas who can match the Harad Marchers for range and outstrip that of the Forge Shell Gatekeeper. So it looks like Isengard will probably have to rely on his teammate in order to approach this defensive position successfully and to whittle down some of their more important forces to make it a little bit easier for the infantry. Now let's pop back on over to this end. I really want to know what happened. Oh, what a nightmare this is. Yeah, this Elven position, there's really nowhere for him to go at this point. He doesn't have enough cavalry to beat back Gundabad, not by a long shot. These two warg units on their own could wipe out the remaining Pathfinders. Most of his spear units, I think, are on the front line, so we won't be able to give them any anti-cavalry support that way. And he's being pummeled by more efficient archer units who have dealt his army a lot of casualties. And once Gundabad moves in on the flank with everything that he's got there, I mean, this is going to be disaster. And look, the High Elves are in a strong position as well. A lot of Sword Quindy over here. Got some Nori Tuner. Looks like all the Nori Tuner are out of ammunition, so maybe he won't get shot to death on this end. But, oh yeah, the Elder Wing Archers still have some shots, and so does this unit of Nori Tuner. So, there's really nowhere for the Woodland Realm left for them to go at this point. I think they're just doomed. I'm going to call it right now. The Woodland Realm is 100% doomed. Let's see what Khand is up to. It looks like, yeah, Khand has realized that things have gone much better on this end, so they're going to double down with their allies and move the majority of their forces over here to confront Harad and Eriador and everything that remains up there on that cliff. And that's going to be a very welcome influx of forces. Look at this. He's got some Nerniag Raiders here, very useful for shooting down the Forge Shell Gatekeepers and things like that in order to protect the Isengard pikes. So, yeah, this could be a big problem. I think there's enough overwhelming force here to eradicate these two forces here, which is going to be basically, because of the inevitable, in my opinion, loss of the Woodland Realm. That's trading two enemies for one of your allies, and you know what? I think it works. Let's see what we got over here. Eriador really doubling down. A couple units of Forge Shell Heavy Swords being brought to bear. This is going to be the kinds of support, I think, that this flank needs. These guys stand up to missile fire much better than the Cardinal Footmen, and certainly better than the battle-ready Dunedain. So, yeah, not a bad anchor for this particular portion of the battle line. Let's see what we got here. We got some guards of the Orthanc. I would not have moved in with these guys yet. I think this is premature. I think moving in with infantry at this point, it's too soon. You've got options. You've got a new ally coming in. These Helmingas, for example, really, really important for whittling down this archer line and sparing Isengard a lot of unnecessary casualties. The Forge Shell Gatekeepers will stand up to missiles much better than the Harad Marchers, but the Harad Marchers are by far, I think, the most numerous units that they've got up here. And that's about even, but still, that's about half the skirmish force, that's a big loss. Let's see what they're doing. They're being really slow about this, which is allowing the Free Bills of Eriador and the High Elves and the rest of the blue team's allies to pour support in. And I think that this is something that the red team has really suffered from just generally across this battle. They haven't been quick enough, and they have in seizing opportunities. We saw it over there with the Woodland Realm and Khand not following through when they had an opportunity, and we're seeing it now where they're just being sluggish and getting themselves into position and delaying the assault on this blue team defensive line to the point where, oh, looks like there's some action going on over there. So let me finish that thought. But they've allowed these guys to reinforce this position to the point where it's almost unbeatable. There's so much more here than there would have otherwise been. So I think they needed to jump on that a little bit quicker. Yeah, this is nightmarish. The Woodland Realm has been attacked on all sides. Trolls here hammering down the front line alongside some Rudar Berserkers. That's not even going to be fair. Eriador on the Woodland Realm left flank, anchoring the line. They will beat back the Black Uruk Warband and the Orc Marauders, but the center, I think, is going to fall apart really quickly. And look at this Hammer and Anvil attack from the rear. What other kind of Hammer and Anvil attack is there? But in any case, the Witch Realm the Witch Realm Inquisitors charging into the rear of the Forest Wardens. This is game over. The Woodland Realm Center is going to collapse, and that's going to be most of their army right there.
Runs like a whipped dog. Such a deserter is the brother of the murderer. May he find no peace.
I love the advisor. Oh, it's beautiful. The Forest Bladesmen charging into battle against the Elder Enemy Lancers. You know, they may cut down a few of them on their retreat. That's, yeah, wow, look at that. It's a pretty cost-effective charge there. Looks like Khan has decided that abandoning their ally entirely maybe wasn't the best idea. I mean, it is a good idea to move out of the position, and Woodland Realm, I think, was very foolhardy in not following suit with Khan. But Khan, nonetheless, going to try and come back, save their friends, and beat back this High Elven cavalry. This is a fight that the Khandish Cav is going to win. This is no question, totally in the bag for them. Oh, here we got some Brotherhood of the Lance, and looks like they might be going after the Witch Realm Inquisitors. Not a bad idea, as long as this front line holds, and doesn't look like it's going to do that for too much longer. Yeah, their center just destroyed. Gundabad moving up in a nice little column formation here to take advantage of the narrow opening that's been made. Black Orcs of the mountains charging forth, and it's just a nightmare. Look at this, the terrible hordes of Gundabad just pouring forth from this wound that's been made in the Woodland Realms lines. Khan now getting in there with their heavy cavalry, but being denied any kind of decent charge like this, the Brotherhood of the Lance are not going to have a good time. They're going to be forced to retreat out of there with Elder Enemy Lancers now pressing on their flank and trying to encircle them. Yeah, more cataphracts and things like that just pouring in. We got some Varied cataphracts and some Neurod cataphracts as well. Ooh, big charge here into the Elder Enemy Lancers. Oh, this might be devastating for that unit. Let's see. Yeah, the Elder Enemy Lancers holding the ground well. They only lost a few of them in that charge. And the Neurite Cataphracts are going to find themselves surrounded now. Another charge in support from the Varied Cataphracts coming in to try and relieve their brothers. That's going to be the nail in the coffin for the Elder Enemy Lancers. So the Cav here from Khan doing a good job at shutting down some of the fast movers, allowing small remnants of the Woodland Realm to retreat. But honestly, there's not enough here to really make a difference. 21 Woodland or Elder Royal Guard. It's negligible. I mean, they're strong, but there's just so much of the enemy force left, and most of Gundabad's elite corps is basically untouched. That the tiny remnants that the Woodland Realm was able to save, just not going to be worth it. Oh, look at this. I didn't realize they had assassins in this army. I'm not sure that I would commit these guys to this fight. I think that they will be overwhelmed really, really quickly. I would have held on to these guys a little bit later if I was Belikov, but nonetheless, the Neuron assassins charging into battle. So we got about 40 Forest Bladesmen managed to make it out of this horrible, horrible slaughter of the Woodland Realm. But most of their army, it's gone. And Sergei Belikov is suffering very, very grievously, just trying to keep the cork on this huge influx of blue team troops. We got over here. Looks like some more action going on here. Rohan's Shield Maidens charging hard into the Norituna Warriors. I'm not sure that that's going to go very well for the Shield Maidens. I don't know. They are cavalry, and the Norituna aren't especially strong in melee, but they do have a lot of melee defense. So the only time that these guys are going to be cost effective in getting kills is when they're on the charge. And there's only so many times that they can do that. Oh, this is going to be ugly though. The Rohan Nobles charging in. Those Sword Quincy too strung out to form a battle line. Those Norituna are going to get run right over by a charge from that heavy cav. And there's some Khandish infantry over here to support them in the event that Gundabad and the High Elves come against the remaining red team forces in a big way. Now let's move over onto this end. Look at this. Urukai Pikemen just sitting here taking it. Now is the time to move in. We've got some bandits from Free Peoples of Eriador that surrounded these Helmingas. Why are these Helmingas? I don't understand why they're up there all by themselves. They need to move in together as a team, but they're still so out of position. There's a lot of forces over here, like the Riders of the Fold, for example, that could be really useful in trying to pepper down the blue team up on the top here. So I think that the red team is kind of throwing away a victory here in a lot of ways. If they had moved quickly, they would have been able to smash this defensive position, destroy a lot of the, well, destroy at least 2 of the remaining players. Eriador was quite heavily committed over here as well. Harad would have been eradicated, which is a lot of powerful infantry that, and just generally powerful units that they wouldn't have had at the disposal of the blue team. And potentially, if they did it quickly and efficiently enough, they might have been able to catch some of the reinforcements from the High Elves and from Eriador as they moved in, so they could have wiped out, yeah, essentially 2 factions for the loss of their one ally. But now they've been bogged down. They're taking heavy casualties, and the blue team's had an opportunity to reinforce this position. And I don't think the red team rather has it left in them now. They've just taken too much damage. I think from this point on, it's going to be a little bit of a slow, grinding defeat. Let's see what we got over here. Those Rohan nobles just kind of ran right by the Norreturn. I don't think they actually killed any of them. Well, that's unfortunate. I was looking forward to watching them get butchered. Well. Let's see what we got over here. The Kondish cavalry now on its last legs. Harad Windblades charging hard in. That's the General of Kond. Look at that. A damn nice charge there into the Witch Realm Inquisitors. Probably took down some of the Snow Trolls as well. That's going to be all she wrote for that heavy Gundabad cavalry unit. Don't know if they have any cav left at this point. Rohan nobles charging into the rear of the Rudar Berserkers. That's going to be ugly for Gundabad. This is an opportunity here. If they can use these guys, because of how bunched up Gundabad's forces are, if they can just get the cycle charges rolling with this heavy cavalry, maybe if they brought in another unit as well, then they might be able to eliminate a significant number of Gundabad's elite infantry, and that could turn the game around. So there is still hope for the red team at this point if they act quickly, but so far they haven't really been able to do that. Oh, boom, big charge. Oh, that troll just went flying. Some support here from the Varied Cataphracts charging into the Blackguard and the Guardians of Karn Doom. The Gundabad infantry is going to countercharge, and that's going to see many of those Cataphracts into an early grave. But still, that does knock off some of the HP from these expensive units. Yeah, now Gundabad is kind of starting to fan out a little bit. He's bringing in some reinforcements. Yeah, those Rohan nobles, I think, are now a little bit overmatched. They can do some serious damage to these troops if they blob up, but I think Gundabad may be able to survive that just from this one unit of cavalry. There's not enough over here, I think, for them to do a significant damage to the Gundabad blob. Let's see what we got here. We got some Norreturner warriors running smack into a unit of Narad footmen. Another unit over here being pulled off to charge into the flank and surround these guys on 2 sides. A little bit of archer support in the back from, I believe that's the Nurniag Raiders. Yes, indeed. That's going to be pretty ugly for the Norreturner warriors, but honestly, I wouldn't be using the archers at this point. There is a serious danger of friendly fire, so these archers probably should be saved, I think, for a little bit later. Oh, what do you know? The Woodland Realm, not completely dead. Got some light elven archers here from the Woodland Realm, and Elder Royal Guard still alive, and 34 units of Forest Bladesmen, so very, very few managed to make it out of the destruction of the Woodland Realm over there on the other end of the marshes, but there's a little bit. Backing up Kond, maybe there's enough to make a difference. Who knows? What do we got over here? The majority of the Kondish forces, yeah, they need to move in. They need to just commit. They've been so kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the shallow end of the pool here, and I think it's costing them. They need a victory. They need to wipe out all of these troops, and that would really help. I think even the odds against the remaining High Elven and Gundabad forces. Let's take a quick look here. Take stock of what remains for the High Elves. Yeah, they've still got a decent amount of troops here. They got their Mithlon nobles. Yeah, the Storm Guard and things like that. This is gonna be a tough fight. But if they manage to take out this defensive position, then I think that would be a big win for them and keep them in the game. But if they just keep doing what they're doing, they're just gonna lose their army over time. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward just a little bit here. So we got some Woodland Hunters from Eriador. Eriador has so much hidden stuff that I just didn't see it all. Yeah, the Uruk-hai Pikes losing ground. Looks like a lot of them died down here, like a lot. The Uruk-hai Crossbows trying to pepper down, I think, what remains of the Gatekeepers. Still a fair amount of them left. Yeah, and yet another unit of gatekeepers yet to come. Not to mention the demons of the desert. So this is an ugly position for Isengard to be in. And it doesn't seem like he's getting a ton of support. Like Rohan's been in there a little bit, but Khand is just sitting back. Yeah, so many of these units just idle. Really, really unfortunate. Khand needs to make a decision about what they're going to do. Otherwise, they're dead weight for their team right now, essentially. Over on this end, the Norite here, slowly but surely losing ground. Small band of Sword Quendi coming in to try and reinforce them. It's not going to make much difference against 2 units of Narod Footmen. The High Elves still moving in, though. More Storm Guard and other things have to come. So it looks like the High Elves are going to commit on this end. And I would say that the Red Team is in a decent position to hold out against the High Elves. They've definitely low on arrows and resources generally at this point. They've got the Norite Warriors firing into the Narod Footmen, and that will do a reasonable amount of damage, but their Elder Enemy Archers, I think, are elsewhere. Yeah, they're not in a position to aid the rest of their army. So I don't know. Maybe Khan can bottle them up here and deal some significant casualties to some of the more elite High Elven forces, like the Eladra Storm Guard, for example. What do we got here? What we have is a giant gap in this line. Oh yeah, they are going to exploit it. Look at that. Sword Quendi moving in. Gonna be able to run right around the Narod Footman position and charge headlong at those Nerniag Raiders. A small unit, even 43 in them, like this unit of Sword Quendi, it's enough. It's enough to destroy these guys. So Khan's now gonna shift a lot of his forces to the other end of the field. Khan has just been way too passive this game. They needed to get themselves moving and to make a decision on what they were going to do. So now they're moving back across the marshes with a significant portion of their army to try and beat back the High Elves. Meanwhile, Isengard, I think, has basically run out of steam. They've got their elites left, and the elites are pretty strong. They've got some Uruk-hai crossbows and things like that as well, but I don't think they have what they need to take this position from Blue Team.
We are winning the battle.
Let's move on over to this end and see what's happening. Yeah, the rest of the High Elf forces, everyone's being very, very cautious. Nobody really wants to. It doesn't seem like anyone wants to commit heavily in any place. But I think that the Red Team is definitely in a bad position. So, like they're really struggling. So Blue Team could take the initiative here and sweep away everything that remains from Khand. Yeah, Gundabad somehow managed to get some forces in behind here. Now these Narod Footmen are going to find themselves completely overwhelmed. They're going to do the same thing to the Narod Footmen that they did to the Woodland realm just a moment ago. Some Haruzi heavy infantry moving in to counter this flanking movement from the Rudar Berserkers. Looks like these Narod Footmen, they were wavering a moment ago, but now they're thinking, maybe this isn't such a bad idea. They got some friends in the area. Got some Nerniag Raiders over here. Looking like they're out of ammunition. They're going to move in against the Black Uruks and the Berserkers, try and hold down that line. This is ugly, though. The Guardians of Karn Doom, with their high mass, they're just going to push right in there. Look at that. You can just see them bullying these guys around. Yeah, look at that. They're just flying in the face of these heavily armored swordsmen.
4 fights with horns made of clay. We are winning the battle.
What do we got here? We got some Riders of the Fold. I'm not too sure what they're doing. I would maybe have pulled them off and brought them around this way. He could get into... If he waits, perhaps, until these Guardians of Karn Doom commit themselves, then he does have an opportunity to use that cavalry to come around and launch some hammer and anvil attacks. So I'm not sure what they're doing on the battle line. Probably not the best usage of them at this point. Nice shot of the battle line there. The Brotherhood of the Sword going toe-to-toe with the Witch Realm Blackguard. Blackguard apparently losing in this exchange. Look at that. Probably a lot of that has to do with the archer support that Khan has brought to bear. Witch Realm Blackguard starting to pull it back a little bit. Brotherhood of the Sword running out of steam. Now with the additions of more Guardians of Karn Doom, this is going to be tough for Khan. Although I will say in a straight fight, he's got the AP, I think, needed to be effective against heavily armed units like the Guardians of Karn Doom. But I don't think there's enough elites here to really anchor the line. And these lower and mid-tier units are going to get shredded by these elites over time. So I don't really know what else he has left at this point. He's got some more Narod Footmen. That is definitely going to help. But Khan has now had to commit really, really heavily, basically everything that he's got to try and bottle up the High Elves and Gundabad, which honestly, if he's successful to do, he's going to destroy pretty well 2 armies with 1 player, so I don't know, it's hard to say. We got some Northern Warriors in the back. No, they don't have any ammunition at this point, but they are well positioned to exploit this big gap here, because while the Rohan player could use his cavalry to get around on this end, naturally the blue team can use their own forces to come around and outflank Khan. Now, if these troops are already struggling, if they get flanked right now, this entire flank could collapse. And look at this, they're already shaken. A charge from the Northern Warrior would put the nail in the coffin of this Khandish defense. I think Khan and Rohan realize this. They're going to charge right in there. Oh, disaster! Meanwhile, the Hruzi heavy infantry, alongside the Nurad footmen, have been routed by the Blackguard, and I think there's some Mithlon noble support in there as well. Although luckily, the timely arrival of these Khandish footmen is going to stop the right flank from collapsing and cascading into a general rout. But this is no bueno for the red team. Let's see, Brotherhood of the Lance, Nerniag infantry. Oh, looks like some shield maidens getting into a fight with the Northern Warriors. They managed to do a lot of damage to these guys and shut down this flanking movement. Another unit of Rohan heavy cavalry. I don't know why they're... Oh, I see what they're doing. They're going right for the flank of those Guardians of Karn Doom. Oh, that's going to be an ugly charge. Boom, right into those Guardians. Not as effective, I think, as he needed it to be. Those Rohan bodyguards need to be cycle charged, and maybe with a little bit of help from the Brotherhood of the Lance. Oh, wow. This is a nice move here. Rohan definitely capitalizing on an opportunity. The Kalanarhan Knights, you can see them in the back there, hacking down these Mithlon nobles. He's going to use his Rohan bodyguards coming from the rear, catch this unit of heavy infantry in a vice, and that is going to swing. I don't know if it's going to swing the whole battle in their favor, but Khan and Rohan really starting to pull it back a little bit here. Oh, those Kalanarhan Knights. There's so many of them left at this point. So very deadly. A charge into the rear of these Witchrealm Hammer Guard. They could annihilate them really quickly, and it looks like that's exactly what they're going to be going and looking to do. Let's follow them in there, and then we'll take a look at the other end of the battlefield. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. That's a lot of dead Hammer Guard. Really effective use of those Kalanarhan Knights. Oh, those Hammer Guard really took it on the chin there. Let's move over onto this side. It looks like... Yeah, it looks like Isengard and the forces remaining over here have completely collapsed. And Harad and their allies are going to move in, and they're going to be able to threaten the rear of Khan and Rohan over on the other side. Up here we can see the Isengard forces making a famous final last stand up here on this hill. We've got some Isengard crossbows able to fire pretty much straight down into the Haradrim elites. Look at this, those poor demons of the desert. They're going to get shredded by those crossbows. Well, some forest bladesmen over here from the Woodland realm looking like they were trying to hold up the advance of these blue team forces, but unfortunately they were routed. Some Nurad Windblades giving their last to hold these guys back and just help Isengard hold out for a little while longer and maybe give their team a chance to win over on this side. Now let's see. Where are those Kalanarhan Knights? Got some Rohan bodyguards still proving around somewhere. Or roving around, I should say. Over here, Kalanarhan Knights, still 15 of them. Got some Brotherhood of the Axe fighting hard against what remains of Gundabad's force. Oh, it's pretty well in the balance. It's not decisively, I would say, in favor of one or the other. Some Nerniag infantry here trying to focus down the Witchrealm Blackguard. Not sure that's going to be all that useful. Guardians of the Karn Doom wrapping around this formation of Brotherhood of the Axe. Charge from the rear by the Kalanarhan Knights is going to cost them a few of their units, but oh man, those Black Heroes of the Mountain just getting shredded. Here, a nice charge into the rear. Oh, these Witchrealm Blackguard by the Kalanarhan Knights. That's going to claim the lives of many of those elite footmen. Look at that. Beautiful, very strong charge by those Kalanarhan Knights. Just ping-ponging back and forth, trying to lend whatever strength they can to their failing Khandish allies. Over here, the Brotherhood of the Axe fighting hard against the Elderdommy Archers. There's some cavalry in the rear as well. Brotherhood of the Lance charging into those Elderdommy Archers. They are going to get pancaked. Boom, that is going to be devastating. High Elves have really lost a lot of their forces at this point. I don't think they've got some elites left, but it looks like Eriador is going to be the one to move in and save the day. What do you know? Some Sindar Blade Masters still hidden around. Yeah, so the High Elves and Gundabad, actually the High Elves especially, still very much in the game. They have more troops than I thought they did. I thought they just had like this unit of Phallus Lords and things like that, but no, they've got enough forces to overwhelm everything that remains here of the Rohan Khan alliance. Yeah, those Rohan bodyguards charging into the rear of the Hammer Guard and things like that, they could be really effective. I don't know how many of the Kalanarhan Knights are left. Oh, I see what they're going after. Right for those Blackguard. A charge on the flank is going to hurt these guys big time. And there goes the Gundabad General. Oh man, you can just see that entire unit of Blackguard collapsing under the weight of that charge from the Kalanarhan Knights. More and more forces now pouring in. Looks like the arrival of Eriador is going to be all she wrote for the forces of the red team. Let's see how Isengard is doing up there on that hill. They have just been overwhelmed. The Trollmen of Harad here stood their ground well against the Nosgai and the Nosgai bodyguards. Uruk-hai crossbows have been overlapped by the Cardinal Footmen, and the Foreshell captains over here still really strong. They've barely been used in this battle. Yeah, they're just pressing Isengard, and that's going to be all that remains. And now, the remaining forces of Rohan Khan are going to be completely and utterly surrounded without any hope. Still, this final stand that they put up over here was good. When Khan finally committed, he was able to do, I think, really well against Gundabad and against the forces of the High Elves as well. But he committed too late, and it honestly cost them several victories that I think they would have been able to have. Maybe if Khan and the Woodland Realm had pushed over on this side earlier, they would have been able to separate the blue team forces and prevent them from joining up like they did and then smashing through them. But also over on this end, when he retreated, he just kind of sat there in the back, and when he did commit, yeah, they did well, but it was too late to be decisive. These Hobbit archers, oh man, they're gonna get massacred. That's a beautiful thing. Don't get to see too many Hobbits die in Third Age Reforged videos, but this time around we do. How are we doing here? The Brotherhood of the Axe really struggling against the Sindar Blade Masters. What remains of his archers trying to focus down the Cardinal Footmen. I would be focusing them on the Sindar Blade Masters. Honestly, the Sindar Blade Masters are very weak to missiles with only about 2 armor or so, and I think they have like 40 melee defense, so focusing the Nurniag infantry on these guys would push this unit back very, very quickly. And then he could just focus on the Cardinal Footmen in their own turn, because they don't have as much killing power as the Sindar Blade Masters, so I would definitely prioritize these guys over a block of pikes like the Cardinal Footmen. Here we see the Phallus Lords slowly advancing, taking their time. I mean, the battle is basically over, whether they get there or not. Let's see how we're doing here. Yeah, now the Nurniag infantry are going to be able to open up on this giant blob. Hit both of them at once. Come on, just one more. What are they trying to shoot at? Phallus, that's just not a good idea. He's got an opportunity here to scythe down a lot of really vulnerable units. What's going on over there? It looks like the Rohan General and the Kalanarhan Knights just got shut down. I have no idea where he is. Maybe over here. Ah, yes, you can see some great company from Tundra's Fox. Well, I missed a lot of their things. Charging into the rear of these Kalanarhan Knights, who are going to be overwhelmed by these Foreshell Gatekeepers. Someone has admitted defeat. We've got an admit defeat there, I think from... No, not from Khans. Probably from the Woodland Realm. And look at this. Now these Sindar Blade Masters are going to be able to charge into melee against the Nurniag infantry. They have lost their window, and yeah, the Sindar Blade Masters are pretty well unstoppable against units like this in close quarters. Cardinal Footmen moving in to support them. This is really ugly. Even with the hill advantage, there's no chance that these guys are going to be able to beat these guys back. Woodland Realm's still here. I don't know what they're doing. Looks like they're trying to reload, maybe. Maybe it was Isengard that admitted defeat. That would make more sense. So Free Peoples of Eriador and what remains of Harad, which I think consists exclusively of this one unit of Trollmen, are going to be able to wheel around and move in to surround these guys. So I think it's fair to put this on 6 times, or maybe a little bit lower than that. Witness the final stand of these Khandish forces, now battling to the death. Khand is doomed. Woodland, what remains of the Woodland Realm is doomed. What are these guys trying to do?
Four fights with horns made of clay. We are winning the battle.
Yeah, and that's just about it, I think.
They run like children. Scour
Maybe there's
them
some
from the
cavalry
field.
left around somewhere. Tossing that out. Okay, they're gonna get 3.
This is a
Cavalry.
day of victory.
Yeah, I think that's it. All the other players have been admitted defeat, so congratulations to the blue team. Red team, they did well, especially near the end there. But honestly, they threw away a couple of, I think, really key victories at important points in the battle, and which cascaded eventually in the late game into a loss. So yeah, there's definitely something to be learned from this. If you're going to be aggressive, be aggressive. If you're going to kind of take point like the Woodland Realm did, then follow through, and hopefully your allies will follow you. And generally, it's a good idea to follow your teammates. And definitely, when you have opportunities, seize them and take as much advantage of them as possible, which Isengard and their allies, I don't think, really did all that well when it came to the fight over on this end, on that elevated area. But in any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed this battle. There should be... I'm thinking there's going to be an Igli Ferroque match that comes up next, which is really, really close. Like, absolutely 100% down to the wire. It is an exciting game to watch. And it's one that I got to play in with the mod creator, which is pretty cool. And then after that, we're going to have some more tech lists, and we're just going to continue. We're just going to continue to roll out some more replays and things like that, because I know you guys really enjoy this. But in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.